No, don't grab me. I didn't do
Marcus,
anything.
stop.
But
Hands
pull
where
it.
I can see
Back
'em.
off. You have no right to handle me like this.
Hey, relax. Give me your wrist.
I complied. I wasn't resisting. Why are you escalating this?
Stop pulling.
Let me go. I'm telling you, I didn't break any laws.
Hands behind your back now.
Yeah.
Units en route, 2 minutes out.
Leo Novak made the worst mistake of his year when he turned a minor inconvenience into a full-blown confrontation with the law. He thought demanding a burger gave him authority, but instead it put him face-to-face with consequences he wasn't ready for. And the moment Officer Dean walked up to that black pickup truck window, Leo crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Before we continue, let us know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here. Leo Novak made the worst mistake of his year when he turned a minor inconvenience into a full-blown confrontation with the law. He thought demanding a burger gave him authority, but instead it put him face-to-face with consequences he wasn't ready for. And the moment Officer Dean walked up to that black pickup truck window, Leo crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Before we continue, let us know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here. Officer Ralph Dean, a soft-spoken patrolman with 11 years on duty, never expected his night shift to hinge on a fast food argument. The dispatch call had come through with urgency, 4 hostile individuals refusing to leave the burger barn. That wasn't a common occurrence in this quiet part of town, but the voice of the shift supervisor on the radio sounded shaken. When Dean and his partner arrived, Darcy Hale, the supervisor, met them outside with relief all over her expression. Darcy wasn't someone easily rattled. She normally had the steady temperament of someone who had seen every imaginable late-shift meltdown, from drunk teens to coupon battles. But tonight was different. They were screaming at the register. One of them nearly jumped the counter. The customers inside were terrified. "I need them trespassed permanently." Dean nodded. "Are they still here?" Darcy pointed toward a black pickup truck idling across 2 spaces in the parking lot. Dean could see 4 figures inside, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. The engine was still running. Dean approached calmly, hands visible, posture non-aggressive. He'd been trained well in dealing with agitated civilians. He leaned slightly toward the open driver's side window. Inside sat Leo Novak, mid-30s, wiry, tense, eyes already fired up, the type who thrives on confrontation. "Evening. I'm Officer Dean. We received a complaint." Leo cut him off sharply. "What's the big deal? I was trying to order food. Isn't that what this place is for?" Dean didn't get defensive. "Sir, the staff requested law enforcement intervention. They're asking you to leave the property. I'll need to see your identification to issue the official trespass." Leo's jaw tightened, like he was preparing for a verbal assault. "You don't get to tell me what to do, copper. Get your pathetic self away from my window." Dean remained steady. "Sir, I am asking one more time." Leo leaned forward aggressively. "I don't answer to you. You work for me. My taxes pay your salary." That line, officers hear it too often. Dean didn't escalate. "Right now, I'm simply identifying everyone in the vehicle so we can document the trespass. Then you'll be free to leave." In the passenger seat, Chloe Farrow, younger, anxious, tugged Leo's sleeve. "Just give him your ID, please. Let's just go." Leo jerked his arm away. "I control my actions," he muttered through clenched teeth. "He has no authority over me." Dean exhaled slowly. "Sir, failure to provide identification makes this a refusal to comply. At that point, I'll have to enforce the trespass by detaining you." Leo's response was short and explosive. "I'd like you to try." The tension inside the truck was sharp. The 2 men in the back stayed silent, suddenly less enthusiastic about Leo's bravado now that consequences were looming. Dean gave one final instruction. "Sir, step out of the vehicle." Leo stared at him, not with fear, but with stubborn defiance, and did nothing. Dean signaled to his partner, and in that moment, Leo's night changed direction. Before we continue, think about this. Have you ever seen someone escalate a situation for no reason when cooperation would have ended it peacefully? Just let us know in the comments. Officer Dean gave Leo one last chance. "Sir, I am instructing you to exit the vehicle." His voice was calm, measured, the tone of someone who had dealt with resistance before. Leo didn't move. Not happening. Dean opened the door himself. The instant the cold air hit Leo, he snapped. "Don't touch my door! You're violating my rights!" He tried to pull the door shut again, but Dean and his partner had already positioned themselves. Leo struggled, pushing against their arms. Chloe leaned over, pleading, "Stop! Leo, stop! Don't do this!" Dean maintained control. "Please step out of the truck, right now." Leo's voice cracked into a roar. "You're not my handler! I do what I want!" Dean and his partner carefully pulled him out. Leo resisted fiercely, twisting and cursing. "Get off me! I'm not under your custody! I own my actions!" Dean responded plainly. "Sir, you're trespassed and refusing identification. You are now being detained." Leo kicked against the pavement. "You're nothing! You're just a man in a costume!" The officer secured his arms with cuffs. Leo continued shouting, voice rising like he wanted the entire parking lot to be his stage. In the front seat of the truck, Chloe began to cry softly, realizing the situation was past the point of return. Dean addressed her gently. "Ma'am, you also need to leave the property. You've been included in the trespass. You are free to go, but you cannot remain here." Chloe nodded shakily. "Can I at least take the truck?" Dean looked to Darcy, got a confirming nod, then answered, "Yes, but you need to drive off now." Chloe slid behind the wheel, hands trembling, while Leo, now cuffed, spat venom over his shoulder. "You love this, don't you? Alpha cop moment. Bet this is the highlight of your week, power boy." Dean didn't react. He simply guided Leo toward the squad car. Leo's insults continued non-stop, about the justice system, the police department, the pay grade, even Dean's uniform. Nothing was off limits. Nothing was beneath him if it helped him feel like he still had control. Once inside the car, Leo slammed his head against the seat. "You're punishing a hungry man over a burger!" Dean closed the door. The legal process that followed was methodical. Leo was charged with criminal trespassing after warning, disorderly conduct, and resisting detention. At arraignment, his public disturbance and resisting charges were ultimately dismissed, largely due to Chloe's statement, where she described Leo as mentally overwhelmed and impulsive. But the court didn't budge on the trespassing. The judge stated plainly, "You were warned. You chose defiance. Your intention does not override property rights." Leo was found guilty of criminal trespassing after warning. The sentence was not dramatic, just a fine, community service, and mandatory behavioral counseling, but it was a definitive legal mark. And for the first time in a long time, Leo felt the cost of his outburst. Before we continue, have you ever seen someone sabotage themselves simply because they wouldn't back down? Tell us below. Leo Novak didn't become confrontational overnight. His history was a trail of unresolved clashes that followed him like footprints in wet cement. People who knew him described someone who felt most alive when he was arguing. It wasn't about winning. It was about engagement, control, being the loudest in the room. He wasn't always antagonistic. In social settings, he could be funny, charismatic even. He had that rapid-fire way of speaking that drew people in until it turned sour. We learned later that this wasn't his first trespass.
Years earlier, he'd gotten banned from a bowling alley for berating an employee over lane availability. Another time, he created a scene at a convenience store, convinced he was being disrespected by the cashier. No arrests back then, just warnings and walkouts. Every time, he walked away thinking he had been justified.
Chloe had been with him for 2 years. She'd seen the pattern slowly tightened around their life. At gatherings, Leo often ended up arguing with relatives over trivial things. Holidays devolved into debates that escalated until voices rose and doors slammed. She had once asked him quietly, "Why do you fight everyone?" He answered in a tone that tried to sound noble, "Because people need correcting. They need someone to tell them when they're wrong." That logic made sense to him. It didn't make life easier for anyone around him. A coworker of his, Juniper Moss, later recalled a moment at work. Leo just exploded on a guy who cut in front of him at the coffee machine. It took 3 managers to calm him down. After that, people just avoided him. Leo's parents, Edric and Mara Novak, had tried intervention years ago. They suggested therapy, anger management, even simple breathing practices. He always rejected it. "I'm not the problem," he'd mutter. "Everyone else needs to stop pushing me." And so the world around him adjusted. People stepped back. Friends drifted away. Chloe struggled, torn between wanting to help him and protecting her own peace. The irony? Leo's confrontations rarely achieved anything. They didn't make situations better. They didn't change anyone's mind. They only isolated him further. Officer Dean didn't know any of this during the arrest, of course. To Dean, Leo was just another belligerent individual making a routine call more complicated. But Leo's guilty verdict in court wasn't merely a punishment for one incident. It was a collision between his lifetime of unrestrained impulsivity and a legal boundary that finally held him accountable. Before we continue, consider this. Do you think people like Leo are born confrontational, or do they become that way over time? Your thoughts matter. Drop them in the comments. Leo's sentencing might have been modest, but the aftermath hit harder than the court expected. His employer, already wary of past incidents, placed him on probationary review. Some coworkers stopped talking to him entirely. And Chloe, she had once quietly reached her own breaking point. 2 weeks after the court ruling, Officer Dean was unexpectedly contacted by Chloe. She asked if she could meet with him privately, not for confrontation, but for clarification. They met at a neutral, quiet community center office. Chloe spoke softly, choosing each word carefully. "I don't know if you realize how many times I've tried to stop him before things got this far." She described nights of exhaustion, apologies on his behalf, constant alertness in public, always bracing for the next argument. Dean listened, not as a cop, but as a person. "You've carried a lot," he said, acknowledging her burden. Chloe nodded. "I just kept thinking I could fix him, but after that night, I finally understood something." Dean waited. She continued, "I've been trying to protect him from consequences his whole life, and I've only been delaying the one thing that might make him change, finally facing the result of his choices." That was the moment when the story stopped being about police versus citizen and became about accountability versus indulgence. Meanwhile, Leo, required to attend behavioral counseling sessions, showed up with the same resistant posture he'd shown at the burger drive-thru. At first, he sat with arms crossed, talking only when he needed to. But his counselor, Dr. Sylvan Arado, was patient. He didn't push, he didn't provoke. He asked simple, direct questions. "Do you believe your reactions help you or hurt you?" Leo deflected. "I just don't like being disrespected." Dr. Arado countered gently. "Does disrespect justify escalation?" Leo paused, a moment of inward processing.
In another session, Dr. Arado asked, "Why did you refuse to show your ID that night?" Leo stared at the floor. "Because I didn't want to back down." "And what did that choice get you?" Leo didn't answer. He didn't need to. For the first time, he began experiencing an uncomfortable truth. His confrontational nature wasn't a shield. It was a cage, one he'd built himself.
Leo started realizing something else too. People were losing respect for him, not because of one incident, but because of a pattern they had all silently endured. And slowly, the question shifted from, "Why is everyone against me?" to, "Why do I keep putting myself in these situations?" Before we move forward, think about this. Do you believe some people can truly change their behavior once they're forced to confront themselves? Let us know your thoughts below. By the third month after sentencing, Leo's life had undeniably shifted. The counseling sessions, once approached with hostility, began to feel less like punishment and more like mirrors. He didn't always like the reflections, but he couldn't ignore them anymore. One afternoon, after a session, Leo stepped outside into the open air and found himself standing alone. No audience, no target, no confrontation, just him. And in that stillness, an unvarnished thought came to him. I'm tired. Not tired of other people, tired of himself. At work, small changes were noticed. He didn't snap at the receptionist when she asked him to wait. He didn't interrupt during meetings. And when a coworker spilled coffee near him, Leo surprised everyone, including himself, by helping clean it up rather than firing off an insult. Chloe, meanwhile, had chosen space. She moved into her sister's apartment, telling Leo she needed distance to heal and reassess whether a future with him was possible. It wasn't an ultimatum. It was a boundary. Her absence forced another truth into view. He had relied on her as a buffer, a translator, an emotional shock absorber. Without her, his actions echoed back at him more clearly. Months later, Leo asked Dr. Arado a question he never would have voiced before. How do I stop reacting like everyone's out to challenge me? The doctor replied, by accepting that most people aren't thinking about you at all. They're just living their lives. The insight landed quietly, but deeply. And then there was Officer Dean. At a community forum on policing, Dean was asked about the drive-thru incident. He didn't gloat, didn't moralize. He simply said, our job isn't to win wars with citizens, it's to prevent situations from getting worse. People don't always make the best decisions in heated moments, but dignity still matters, even when someone is yelling at you. Some in the audience looked surprised, expecting a harder stance, but Dean's approach resonated with many, even critics of law enforcement. Weeks later, Leo approached Dean in the parking lot after another forum. It wasn't dramatic, no grand speech. He just said, I wasn't fair to you that night. Dean nodded slowly. I appreciate you saying that. No handshake, no symbolic gesture, just two men acknowledging a human moment. In the end, Leo's legal punishment might have been minor, but the internal reckoning, the ongoing confrontation with himself, became the true sentence and ultimately the path toward change. Leo didn't transform overnight, and this story isn't about a perfect redemption arc. It's about reality, that sometimes consequences don't erase a problem, they just finally name it. And once something is named, you can either continue denying it or begin learning from it. Some people face their breaking point in dramatic, public ways. Others meet it quietly when no one else is around. For Leo, accountability began in a police call, but real change began in silence, in reflection, and in the growing desire to live differently. There's a saying that every reaction is a choice, and every choice builds a reputation. Leo had spent years choosing escalation, confrontation, and self-justification. But slowly, he began practicing a different kind of choice, restraint. Will he relapse into old patterns sometimes? Possibly. Change isn't a straight line, but for the first time in years, he's trying. And that effort, however imperfect, matters. So let me ask you, do you think justice was served in this situation? Or was the true justice the internal change Leo was forced to face? Share your perspective in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you appreciate stories that explore human decisions, consequences, and transformation, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your interaction helps us continue bringing these real human narratives to light. Thank you for watching, and thank you for thinking.